Hi, and welcome to Forms class, Title Addendum 22T. I'd like to share my screen with you in regards to the forms that we'll be going over today. Not only will it be this 22T, but also the 90T. So the 22T is your title contingency. This agreement is subject to the buyer's review of the preliminary title, and you've got two choices when it comes to this. Buyers will have 5 days, if not filled in, from the date of the buyer's receipt of the preliminary title commitment for title insurance, or mutual acceptance from the date that the buyers actually receive it, to give notice of the buyer's disapproval of exceptions contained within that preliminary commitment. And the seller shall have 5 days, if not filled in, after buyer's notice to disapprove to the buyer notice that seller will clear all disapproved exceptions. Seller shall have until the closing date to clear all of the disapproved exceptions. If the seller does not give timely notice to clear all those disapproved exceptions, the buyer may terminate this agreement within 3 days, and in the event that they terminate the agreement, their earnest money will be refunded back to the buyer. If the buyer does not terminate the agreement, the buyer shall be deemed waived all of objections to the title which the seller did not clear. Any supplemental reports that the buyer receives actually start over the time frame. So if they had the 5 days to renew, to look over the new preliminary title, the supplemental will also have on that time frame of the 5 days. The closing date, again, shall be extended as necessary to accommodate any of the foregoing times for the notices. Marketable title, the addendum does not relieve the seller of the obligation to provide marketable title at closing as provided in this agreement. Couple things that you do need to be aware of is that if your buyer has any things that don't actually look correct in this, or that look strange, please request them to get in contact with the title company and have them explain things to them. You always want to make sure that the legal description that's in the preliminary title actually matches that which is on the PSA. If it doesn't match, then you need to call the title company and find out which is the correct one, and then go with that. Another thing to look at are liens. Do they look strange? Obviously, there's going to be the normal easements, CC&Rs, but if there's any materialsman liens or a second mortgage, things that are a little strange, that need to be taken care of prior. One of the other things too to take note of is if your buyer is buying rural property, open space property, they need to find out, are they going to use that after they buy it as open space and continue with that, or are they not going to use it as open space? If they utilize that as open space, then they don't have to worry about the current seller and the tax implications. If they are not going to use it as open space, they want to make sure that any back taxes that the seller didn't pay with that being open space, which is a reduction in taxes, that they are paid prior to closing. And one other thing to note is that when a preliminary commitment for title is sent directly to the broker, they are deemed to have given notice as well to their buyer. So what they want to do is just directly forward that on to their buyer so that that time clock is started, and then they can take a peek at that. Another form that they're going to use is also going to be the 90T. This is the title contingency notice. So the top portion of this here is exactly like the purchase and sale. However, this first box they would check buyer's notice of disapproval of title exceptions. Buyer hereby gives notice that the buyer disapproves of the following, and then they would write out what they are: materialsman lien, anything else that might be there. They'll sign it and send that over. At that point, the seller then will respond back to the disapproval. And they have the choice of seller hereby gives notice that the seller will or will not clear the disapproved exceptions set forth in the preliminary title insurance. And then, of course, dependent upon what that answer, the buyer then has the notice of termination that they can terminate and get their earnest money back. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And of course, if you're working with your buyer and there are questions on the preliminary title, please direct them to your title company. Thank you so much.